But now here we are, 2021. It's finally happening. I feel like this is some robot just staring at me right now.
Shopee review. We check for you.
There was a moment in time where having a selfie camera in front of your phone was something really magical. As time goes by, people wanted more screen real estate, mainly because we consume media a lot more than we take pictures in front of our selfie camera. And that is why we have the Asus Zenfone 8 Flip right here today. Well, I guess from the name, you can tell there's a lot of flipping going on. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and unbox this phone. I just want to take a little bit of time to appreciate the effort that Asus has put on this box. I like the matte finish. Now we're gonna go ahead and unbox this and see what comes inside the box. You get to see this quote right here from Asus. It says, "Defied ordinary." I love that. Very inspiring. And right here, I believe you get, is it a jelly case? I don't think so. No, it's not a jelly case. Actually, a really beautiful casing. It has this texture as well. I'm gonna bring it closer to the mic. Now that is something very satisfying in the ears, is it not? Taking a look at the bad boy itself, I don't want to look into it first. Let's just explore the box real quick. So you get your Type-C to Type-C, and inside here you also got your 30-watt fast charging. That's about it in the box. And now let's bring out the bad boy right here, the Asus Zenfone 8 Flip. From the get-go, you get to see how shiny the back is. It's something that I really like. It's really shiny. I can even see my own reflection there. Which brings me to my next topic, the design of this phone. From the get-go, you get to see that it's a little bit heavier compared to most phones. That is due to the fact that it has a 5000 milliamp hour battery. Now that is a massive battery. Despite being thick, they didn't manage to include the headphone jack, which is a bit weird for me. And on the side, you have your volume rocker, a bit of an odd color for the power button. On the bottom, you have your Type-C port, standard stuff, and your speaker. Now don't get me wrong, this might look like a mono speaker setup, but Asus actually did something pretty smart right here. They have integrated this speaker as an actual speaker for your media. Now that is something I always appreciate, the fact that stereo speaker is available on this phone. However though, going back to the back real quick, it is quite of a fingerprint magnet from the moment I unbox this phone. I'm gonna go ahead and put this casing that Asus included. Woo! It looks hella clean right now with this touch on the case. And now let's talk about camera bump. In these modern days, a lot of phone manufacturers are coming up with huge sensors on their phone, and you get to see a lot of this oddly placed camera that makes your phone just look not symmetrical and not stable, especially when you put your phone on the table. Now Asus actually make everything symmetrical in terms of the camera department. So when you put down the phone, it doesn't tilt as much as any other phone. In terms of specification, you'll be getting 8GB of RAM and 256GB of internal storage with expandable micro SD slot. And really, what is wrong with expandable storage? I don't get why certain companies want to remove that, but thank you Asus for not forgetting about that. Now, let's talk about the display. From the beginning of this video, I did mention what is it about getting rid of the selfie camera. It's to give a bigger screen real estate. So as you can see from this phone, the front side is entirely made out of screen. Bigger screen just means bigger experience, right? On top of this phone right here, you got a 1080p AMOLED display. It has a 20:9 aspect ratio. It has a 90Hz display as well. You must be wondering, why is this 2021 phone? Where's the fingerprint scanner? Of course, it's under the display right here. And it's quite snappy too. I don't see any problem with it. It detects my fingerprint real quick. Now in terms of outdoor usage on broad daylight, I think it's alright. It's still bright because this phone is capable of putting out 1000 nits on peak. Man, I remember when I first started this show, I said I didn't want to get too technical, but here I am being a nerd. I want to show you guys something cool about this phone. Now, they're not the first to make this, but it's still cool like it never happened. Check this out. That is some satisfying thing, right? You only get to see this in sci-fi movies, by the way, but now here we are, 2021. It's finally happening. I feel like this is some robot just staring at me right now. So you got your standard 64 megapixel lens, 12 megapixel ultra wide, a lot bigger than the ones that we've been getting, an 8 megapixel telephoto lens with 3x optical zoom. Now that just gives you a little bit more flexibility in terms of shooting. So we're outside right now to test out the Zenfone 8 Flip's camera. I want to try out the portrait lens right here. So that's that. I took a photo. For the most part, it's doing pretty nice. You can see the amount of details that you get from this photo. You can see the texture of my clothes right here. We're gonna test out the low light performance on this since it's also a flippable mechanism, right? So I can also do the night mode using my front-facing camera right here. Oh, I love it, man. The details, it's not gone. Now we know that the Asus Zenfone 8 Flip is capable of producing really amazing low light shots. Definitely something worth considering solely because you can shoot from the back and the front with the same lens on night mode. There's a couple of features that we can talk about, like the fact that you can do a panorama mode while the camera goes up instead of having to pan yourself. This motorized part also plays a huge role in terms of your creative process. One of the features I really enjoy on this phone is the ability to tilt it according to a certain angle. Now that opens a new realm of recording. For example, if I were to shoot this table right here, by standard, what you would be doing is you'll be shooting from up right here, but with this phone, you can actually do it just like so. So that opens a lot of conveniences, efficiency in terms of recording a video. And this lens is capable of shooting up to 8K resolution. However, it is capped at 30 FPS only. There's nothing much that you can do. That means you are also capable of recording at 4K. And the best part as well, when you record it at 4K, you can actually record 30 FPS, 60 FPS, and even 120 FPS. Now you might think, oh, but it's just for the back camera. Wrong! Your back camera is your front cameras. Now you get a super huge sensor, you get a super huge resolution on your front camera. However though, when you record at these high resolutions, you are bound to get a very shaky footage. Of course, you need a stabilizer, a gimbal, or whatsoever. There is a built-in gyro EIS in here. You can switch that on, however, the footage that you record will no longer be 4K or even 8K. I'm gonna test out first the selfie camera. Man, this is so nice! Of course, when you switch on the Hyper Steady, it's locked at 1080p. It is a lot more stabilized. Wow, I'm super amazed by how stabilized this is. I'm gonna push it to the limit. I'm gonna try 8K resolution. So this is the 8K recording. It's not as steady, but you get to have a lot of details in it. Actually, if you have a pretty steady hand, the 8K doesn't seem to be having an issue with like shaky footages and all that. When you have this camera just popping out of your device like this, of course you're concerned, what if I'm gonna drop it? So that is why Asus comes up with multiple ways to prevent this thing from dropping on your hand and also taking care of the safety of this camera right here. One of it being is the casing. I did mention as well earlier that this casing has a special feature. You can swipe this to lock the camera in position. If you do happen to click on the selfie button, it will tell you, please unlock the latch on the Asus cover and then try again. So that is another safety mechanism that they have for this camera. But one of the most obvious and most interesting one is this. The phone is capable of detecting when you drop the phone. If I drop it right here, you'll see the camera folds in. Another safety mechanism that they include on this phone is that when the phone notices that the camera has been out for too long and it tends to heat up a bit, it'll retract itself back. Now that is something that I'm really amazed about. So they ensure that all of these things actually come together. First, you got a lock on your casing. Another one is that they have this drop feature, right? So a lot of safety mechanism to ensure that the experience of using this phone is not a risky thing. Let's move on to gaming. You know, Asus, they're pretty well known for the gaming phone, like the Asus ROG 5. It's pretty much the standard benchmark gaming phone, but how do they do on their flagship phones right here? Well, from my experience, this phone is doing pretty alright itself, mainly because they're using a chipset, Qualcomm Snapdragon 888. Now that is a bit of a flagship chipset, and I believe that is a pretty good processor as well. So I played a few light games over here like Mobile Legends, Call of Duty. So Mobile Legend, right, is a game that has a lot of mini movements that your eyes cannot keep up with, but it definitely helps in terms of the experience of playing that game. So I push it to the max on this phone. Well, guess what? It handles it pretty well. I actually managed to play about 3 to 4 games without it actually hitting up to a point where I couldn't hold it. If you were to consider about buying this phone solely for the gaming purpose, I don't really recommend it because this phone is a lot more than just that. If you would want to focus on gaming, then Asus has a different department for that, like their Asus ROG phones. Now that is a bit more specialized. However, this phone is more of like an all-rounder flagship device. With all that being said, that doesn't mean that this phone is not capable of running games, right? Of course, it can run a really pretty smooth game. And not only that, Asus decided to adopt some of the features from the ROG phone and import it here, one of it being Game Genie right here. So you can change like the settings, no alerts, no calls, you can lock the brightness, the navigation blocking and all that. Of course, when we talk about gaming, we gotta talk about the battery performance on this phone, right? So you have a 5000 milliamp hour battery over here, and I appreciate that because these days a lot of phones are consuming a lot of powers due to the fact that technology has improved, you know, it consumes a lot more power. So I managed to get about 10 to 11 screen hours on time on this phone with slight media browsing and media consumption, right? But in terms of gaming, it lasted quite long than I expected to be. They have some sort of a software that manages the battery consumption pretty well, so I managed to get about 6 to 7 hours of gaming. I did mention earlier that it comes with a 30-watt fast charge. 30 watt seems a bit underwhelming in this modern days, but it took about 1 hour 30 minutes. It's not the best, however, it is still good enough, provided that this phone have a 5000 milliamp hour battery. So in the past, I've used Zenfone phones myself. In the past, their UI was not really the best because it was filled with bloatware I don't particularly use or enjoy seeing. But I think over the years, Zen UI has improved a lot. Now, as you can see, this phone is equipped with Zen UI 8. You can see that they try to keep it as stock as possible, you know. Everything is just so clean and minimal and simple. I love it. With all that being said, how much does this phone cost? It costs about 2,999 ringgit. Do I think it's worth that amount? Personally, yes. Not only for the camera, right? You gotta take into account the display that you're getting. It's AMOLED 1080p, 90 Hz, and the dual stereo speaker on the phone, the huge, humongous 5000 milliamp hour battery, and the gaming performance on this thing. So it's definitely a phone that deserves to be priced somewhere around there. Now let's talk about who this phone is for. Personally, from my opinion, I think it's for people who create content mainly on their phone. And you have this flipping mechanism that opens a new angle for you to play around with. So that is my review on the Asus Zenfone 8 Flip. Definitely stay tuned on this channel because we have so much more product to check out. Because here at Shopee Review,
We check for you!
That's it from us today. Peace out.